So what do you think? Was that the same thing as Dubravko was playing, or wasn't it? Let me know below in the comments. And keep watching if you want to hear about condensed drone, no potato. Well, let's talk about condensed drone without any potatoes. The way I see it is that Dubravko chose to name this after the idea of condensation, which means that you have liquid in gas form, obviously, and this gas may condensate somewhere, leaving behind little droplets of essence, a droplet of essence of the drone. Now, if you reduce something to the essence, you reduce the volume in which it spreads and make it smaller and purer. Dubravko has talked about how to achieve this with the right embouchure, pressure, and control of the cavity. And I want to talk about a few aspects of condensed drone. Well, first of all, the thing that a lot of us have drawn to the didgeridoo is exactly the opposite of the condensed drone, which is a continuous sound that is emanating from the instrument. Oh, beautiful. We could do this all day long, right? Well, except at some point it gets boring a little bit. The thing we notice about the drone is that it's a constant flow of energy. It's essentially a flat line. There are no peaks, no troughs. The interpretation, what is arriving at people is there's a constant buzz going on. Now, if you start pulsing on the foundation of this drone, there are pulses that peak through, and you can clearly hear them. So you have now these peaks which are reaching out of this constant flow of energy. But the constant flow of energy also takes away from us the ability to make the attack and the sustain more explicit. And by that I mean, assume you have nothing except for the peaks. This is the same volume as before. But suddenly those peaks stand out a lot more than before. And why is that? Well, this has to do with contrast. One effect of the condensed drone is that by controlling the environment of our peaks, and the peaks are coming from the articulations ta, va, ka. And when you control the environment and you go back to silence, which is the essence of the condensed drone, then the same peak will appear to be higher and louder in contrast to a peak sticking out through the constant drone, because the relative change in level from this constant level of your drone to the peak is smaller than from silence to the same peak. And that is something that your brain will notice. So you will appear to be more powerful by playing less. Another aspect of the condensed drone is because you're only taking care of the articulations, you will not need to spend the energy to keep the drone up. which means you have more energy to think and to articulate. Another aspect of the condensed drone is that by surrounding our peaks with silence, we get to control the shape of the attack and the release, which means the beginning of our sound and the end of our sound. If you're falling back into the drone and you're coming from the drone, that also means you're always coming from the drone and you're always going back to the drone. Now, think about the drum sound, right? This drum sound only makes sense if there's a certain ring to it. If it has a beginning, a harsh beginning, and an end. Now, if you take the end and immediately go back to the drone, the drum sound will lose definition. And if you try to close your lips and build up pressure while you're doing the drone, this can't work because your lips need to buzz to make the drone, and you cannot go from buzzing to closed and then instantly releasing pressure. So if you're starting to make a drum sound inside a drone, you will always create a little break in the drone before that. So it's drone, break, bum, drone, break, bum. Now you have this break already, right? Why not play with it a little bit? And that's not even articulating yet. So I wasn't toying around with my tongue, just controlling the pressure and creating boundaries where I let the drone stop, create a different sound, and then maybe re-engage in the drone. So this space of silence gives us the ability to create more percussive elements with the didgeridoo. And that is, for me, another essence of the condensed drone. It's a tool for creating percussive playing while being milder on the constant energy output, which also means that typically you play better together with other instruments because you leave more space. And at the same time, because the peak's higher, because you're coming from zero and not from the drone, you get more definition. So with our peaks surrounded by silence, we get to control how the sound starts, that is the attack, and we get to control the tail of the sound, that is the release. And we can use that to, do some plumbing, create different tails for the same beginning of the sound. And Dubravko was actually putting out a tutorial, the soft drum sound. I suppose I'm gonna link that. And now I'm gonna do the YouTuber thing and point somewhere and claim that maybe there's a card somewhere around here. All right, I hope you find it. And the trick about the soft drum sound is that you're using the same attack, but you're using a different tail. The thing that becomes apparent to me is by creating these little breaks in articulation. So he was giving the example of Dubravko with condensed drone and with continuous drone. Because you have more definition and you have more space in between the parts of the articulation where you do not have to go back to the drone, you have a little bit more time to not only shape your articulation, shape the peak, shape the beginning and the end of the peak, but there's also more time between those peaks. where you do not have to go back to the drone and then from the drone back to whichever articulation you're doing. Which means that you can actually do these things faster and retain the definition. So if I'm going tabaka and I'm speeding up the tabaka, at some point it will become a mess or mashed. No potatoes. No. It's gonna become a mess. It stops sounding like three sounds, right? But contrast that with condensed drone. In my opinion, you can speed this up way more compared to having a continuous drone and still get more clarity and more definition out of your articulations. One thing that I particularly enjoy about playing didgeridoo nowadays is actually condensed drone and creating more percussive rhythmic playing as compared to continuously droning and creating pulsing or maybe doing overtone modulation or adding voice, singing. I rather play more condensed drone. I wasn't really able to do this before I visited my first masterclass, and during my first masterclass, which is quite a while ago already, we practiced so much of the condensed drone, and actually we were doing the clave that Dubravko is playing in this video as well. The 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 tava tavaka tavaka, and we were playing this in condensed drone, and this was the first homework that all of us had to do with condensed drone and sending in recordings to Dubravko. So a few of us did so much of this that it became a second nature. Well, actually we were doing tavaka tavaka tava and not tava tavaka tavaka. And this has become a pattern, a riff that has become second nature to me. Now you can also control the droney part, which is not the attack heavy part. Ta and ka are push sounds. Check out the push and pull tutorial of Dubravko. And va, which is a pull sound, which means we're breathing on the va. It's very easy to have this tiny bit of real estate of va, where you can easily create a drone go into different toots. So you have some free musicality, and actually it costs less air to create a trumpet tone, a toot, instead of the drone. So it's actually quite energy efficient to do that. So this is becoming quite a helpful tool. Here's another example of continuous versus condensed drone. And this time I'm using Dubravko's 11 ta ta ba ta 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 ba ta ba ta ta ba ta ba va. Right? So you can do this in a continuous way and in a condensed way. Or you can do it in a condensed way. Judge for yourself which is more fun. At least I think it's helpful to have another tool in your tool belt. So I suppose that concludes my random rambling about Condensed Drone. Was this helpful to you? I hope so. Please let me know in the comments below. Bye bye.